I have a book that is considered evil, at least according to the Catholic Church. It was banned for a century, but that didn't stop it from inspiring some questionable people. Napoleon, Nietzsche, Hitler, Stalin, Mao. Not exactly the kind of guest list you would want at your birthday party. Unless, of course, you are planning on taking over the world. Then our new friend Machiavelli can help you with his book, called The Prince. So today, I wanted to find out, is this book truly as evil as they say? Or was it completely misunderstood? And maybe even more importantly, how much does The Prince influence our lives and politics today? You know, I always heard people call The Prince as a handbook of tyrants, but honestly, I never actually read it, at least not cover to cover, until recently. Finally, I picked it up while I was on a vacation, and I chose it for a very specific reason, because of the place I was traveling to. See, I have this tradition. I love reading books that are connected to the place that I travel to. It just makes the whole experience so much better. So, any guesses where I went? Yes, Florence, Italy, the birthplace and home of Niccolò Machiavelli himself. Back in his day, Florence was a powerful Renaissance city-state, ruled by the Medici family, and the prince actually was dedicated to them. So reading it felt like the perfect choice. Plus, it's not even that long, it's like under 200 pages. A political treaty from 1532. Alright, so let's talk about the history of this place, because I think honestly it's fascinating. I know history can be boring for some people, but please stick with me. This part is crucial if you want to really understand Machiavelli and the Prince. So, back in the day, Machiavelli wasn't some just random guy scribing down his ideas in a notebook. No, he was actually a top government official in the Republic of Florence. Basically, the guy was kind of a big deal. If you put it in modern terms, Machiavelli was a right-hand man for foreign affairs and defense. Not the boss, but the one making the things happen. Anyways, things were going pretty well for him, until they were not. The Medici family, with the help from the papacy and the Spanish, rolled in and took control of the city. I mean Florence. It was a regime change, a foreign military intervention, and all. Think of it like how the Americans love exporting freedom to legitimately elected states. Whatever. The Medici claimed they were restoring the Republic, but in reality it was just a nice way of saying we are in charge now. And Machiavelli, you might ask, he got the full treatment. Arrested, imprisoned, tortured and exiled, in that exact order. No, most people would just fade into obscurity after all that, but not our guy Machiavelli. So he decided to win back the Medici's favor the best way he knew how, with his knowledge. He took everything that he learned from the years of diplomacy and politics. He poured it into a book, a manual for rulers on gaining and keeping power. That book, of course, was The Prince. He even dedicated it to the Medici family, basically saying, hey guys, look what I can do, maybe please give my job back. But yeah, as you might have guessed, it didn't really work out. Nobody cared, the Medici ignored him, and Machiavelli spent the rest of his life in exile, unappreciated, at least while he was alive. Okay, pause, that's enough history for now. Instead, let's take a look at the book itself, before we make any hasty moral judgments on it. The Prince is comprised of short essays on a bunch of different topics, so it's not like a modern narrative-style book, like Sapiens, for example. It's kinda weird to read at first, but if you stick with it, it will nicely come together. The different essays on different topics. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. It paints a bird's eye view of the Renaissance political life in the region. Did you notice what I said? Region and not Italy. It's important. Italy didn't even exist at this time. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the Italian peninsula got divided into a bunch of independent states. And it stayed like that for 1400 years. It's wild if you think about it. 1400 years. That's a lot of time. So, this is an important fact to understand about Machiavelli, to imagine what went through his mind when he wrote his infamous book. These years were basically a Game of Thrones like blood-soaked battle royale of the city-states. And he grew up right in the middle of that chaos, watching alliances flip overnight. Let's get back to the book. As I mentioned, The Prince is comprised of short essays on different topics. The first 10 or so is about the types of principalities and states, and it means that they can be acquired, conquered, or upheld. He provides pros and cons for each of them. For example, if you are lucky and won the birth lottery, and now you are about to inherit a state or a kingdom, wish I did, but he says you have to do some pretty stupid things to ruin your situation. You just need to watch out and don't grow weak. That's all. And for the rest of us, who's not that lucky, our only option is to look for a state and or country to conquer and subjugate under our own rule. For all of you aspiring dictators out there, I know you are out there, you are lucky, because Machiavelli is kind enough to provide us some examples for different scenarios. He writes about what kind of states and governments are there and what are the upsides and downsides of conquering each of them. How should we seize control of them? Direct military conquest or maybe political maneuvering? What kind of forces should we deploy? And of course, how much cruelty should we use? Okay, let's look at some of the practical suggestions that he provides. If we want to conquer or seize control of a state, we should pay attention what kind of state it is. His advice, depending on the original power structure, we should act differently. If it's a hereditary state, meaning the power was inherited to the current ruler, that's great. These kinds of states are already accustomed to rulership. So it's a plus in our favor in case we decide to take over. However, they are usually conservative and steeped in tradition. To avoid upsetting the people, his advice is to keep the traditions and the big changes should be minimized at first. Next, if our target is a free republic, the situation is not so easy, according to Machiavelli. He tells us these kinds of states are the hardest to conquer and keep under our own rule. The people are already accustomed to freedom, and that is a problem. His advice here is to be heavy-handed, or, which is a very popular option nowadays, is keeping the illusion of freedom and installing a puppet state. A classic move. In the next few chapters, he explores war, a topic that was crucial for his politics. It's clearly reflected in the chapter titled as The Art of War. It starts as a quote, "A prince ought to have no other aim or thought, nor select anything else for his study than war, and its rules and discipline, for this is the sole art that belongs to him who rules." Yeah, quite dramatic, isn't it? He viewed military power as the foundation of political power. A well-armed state, after all, is a secure state. On this note, Machiavelli advises us what kind of military forces there are and which one should we choose. He mentions mercenaries, auxiliaries, mixed and national troops. As you might have guessed, he didn't really like the idea of auxiliaries, meaning foreign or borrowed troops. Neither the idea of the mercenaries. They are not loyal. If you don't pay up, they will turn on you. So his advice here is basically to build up and train our own national forces. Quite heavy, isn't it? He plays God over us, And this uncanny feeling is not going to change in the next few chapters. It intensifies. Here on, it gets even more sinister. He explores how a prince should behave. This is where it turns real controversial, like chapter 17, where he explores whether it is better to be feared or loved. Or in chapter 18, should you keep your promises? He ruthlessly re-evaluates and questions even the most basics of morals. No wonder the Catholic Church didn't like him. For example, in chapter 17 ends with basically saying, for a wise ruler it is better to be feared than loved. Because you can control the fear in the hearts of people, but not the love. A bit pessimistic, though he expands on this idea in another chapter. He says a wise ruler should be feared, but must avoid being despised and hated. So he wants to keep a balance and not go over the rails, thankfully, but still. His views on politics and human nature was revolutionary for his time. Pessimistic, you could even say cynic, but very pragmatic. Nothing like the ideals of his time. He saw the raw and ugly nature of humanity and politics. He believed a good ruler should have multiple faces, strong like a lion and cunning like a fox, should not be even bound by his own promises, and, quote, if men were entirely good, this precept would not hold, but because they are bad and will not keep faith with you, you too are not bound to observe it with them. What matters to him, above all, is not to be righteous or moral, but to appear to be one. And you can clearly see this in the next quote. Therefore, it is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities that I have enumerated, but it is very necessary to appear to have them. Wicked. He even doubles down. Quote, and I shall dare to say this also, that to have them and always observe them is injurious, and that to appear to have them is useful, to appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, upright, and to be so, but with a mind so framed that should you require not to be so, you may be able to know how to change to the opposite. Truly Machiavellian. This is why his name became an insult. It's like a character straight out of Dante's Inferno, from the ninth and deepest circle of hell. Okay, I admit, I've been a bit harsh on the guy. Let's put him back into context. It's really easy to misunderstand him. This is why it's very important to pay attention what is written or said in a bigger context, especially in today's day and age of increasing political divide. Yes, he wrote all of those things, but his ultimate aim for the prince is a strong ruler, for the purpose of a stable and prosperous state. Here is where it's important to remember the short history I gave you at the beginning. It's crucial if you want to understand Machiavelli and his motives. His experience as a diplomat, as an outcast, as a person who directly seen and felt the consequences of an unstable, divided, blood-soaked Italy. Both behind the scenes when he was a diplomat and from first hand when he was exiled. He had a dream of a united and free Italy under a capable and strong leader. He wanted peace and prosperity above all, no matter the tools. However, as you might have guessed, he inspired and gave ideas to a certain set of people, the kind that seeks political power for their own gain. He became very influential, not just as a writer, but as a symbol of cold calculation, political manipulation. And slowly, his name itself took on a darker tone, Machiavellian. No longer just a name, but now a word used to describe cunning, ruthless and strategic behavior. The kind that says the ends justify the means. He influenced a lot of people, from Napoleon to today's CEOs and politicians. He is considered one of the first modern political thinkers. He challenged Christianity's influence on politics, rejecting its moral idealism in favor of a ruthless realism and pragmatism. This realistic view of politics became foundational to one of the most dominant schools in international relations today. It was adapted and reshaped by many other political thinkers, like one from the 20th century Germany, Max Weber, who was one of the founding fathers of modern sociology. He was also a realistic political thinker who famously defined the state as an entity that holds the monopoly on the legitimate use of violence within a defined territory. A bit more well-defined than Machiavelli, but still very pessimistic. Besides these, politics and business, he also had an impact on today's popular culture. Like, for example, have you ever heard about the 48 laws of power? If you don't sweat it. It's one of the holy scripture of the hustle bros, the archetype who tries to sell you an online course. It's become a meme, not because of the book, but because of the goons. I recommend it. To be honest, I never actually read it, so I'm just being mean. But anyways, it's a very popular book. The airport duty-free kind of popular. I always see it in the book section of a duty-free, but actually it's supposed to be a self-help style distillation of The Prince and the Art of War that will tell you how to manipulate and exploit people. A bit questionable. But anyways, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. If you got this far into the video, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channel, so it would mean a lot. See you in the next one. Bye.